Hi, Misha here, and this is a big one, so I'll do my best to get something on camera. And one good thing, at least I do know which way is definitively up with this one. Hi, it's the most recent release in Eaglemoss's official collection of Battlestar Galactica diecast models, both from the original series and reimagined. This is issue 14, the Colonial Black Bird from season 2. And just for fun, I brought out the model of the real Black Bird, which I've featured in a video or two in the past. This is a 1/72 scale, also diecast from Air Force One. But I thought it'd be fun to kind of see the real world inspiration for this cool model. And I think part of this model's allure is that it's from a very good story arc from Battlestar Galactica from season 2, which I have to admit is probably the best season of the series. And this features very heavily in that story arc, so even though it's a one-off ship, it plays a very important part. The model, or kind of model name, is Blackbird, and the actual name of the craft is Laura, for Laura Roslin. This was originally built from parts and whatnot by Chief Petty Officer Tyrol, mostly because he was going through a rough time and needed something to do. And I can totally understand that. That tends to be my personal therapy as well. Also, making these videos sometimes when I'm stressed relaxes me, but it's always nice to build something with your hands. And originally, his concept was to make a new Viper based on just parts, because by this point, Galactica had been on the run for a year. They had Mark IIs that were old and wearing out, only 40 of them. They had less than 10 Mark VIIs, and attrition was taking its toll. So he thought he could build replacements kind of using whatever. But the aircraft quickly morphed into something different. Because resources were very tight on Galactica, metal wasn't really available for this pet project, as were additional engines, other things. And at first, many on the crew, Saul Ty, the executive officer, wasn't on board. Even Galen's crew down on the flight deck kind of thought it was silly. But eventually, and this is what was neat in the episode, everyone kind of pitched in. For example, Colonel Ty helped him get the 4 DDG-62 engines for this, which were considered obsolescent. They were just on the hangar deck of a neighboring ship in the fleet, just taking up space. At least that's what Ty said. I have a feeling he probably traded a few bottles of booze for them. Starbuck helped fly it. Hot Dog and Apollo kind of gave their input. One suggestion was to make the skin out of a carbon composite, carbon fiber type material to save on metal. This also meant that it ended up being rather stealthy on Dratus. It didn't return a signal. This was designed to launch from Viper tubes, but is definitely not a Viper. What it ended up becoming was a stealth reconnaissance craft, at least in the beginning. It was fitted with cameras, but no guns. But what it did have was an FTL drive, salvaged from a damaged Raptor. So the idea is for it to swoop in and take pictures, swoop out. And during this arc is when Galactica meets Pegasus. Quite possibly the high point of the entire series, or close to it. Nice to see Ensign Ro again, and that she's finally been promoted. And this is the craft that actually comes back after taking pictures of what we know later is the Resurrection ship that actually de-escalated the potential shooting war between Galactica and Pegasus. So it really saved a lot of lives. After it did the reconnaissance run identifying the Resurrection ship, flown by Starbuck at the time, it later was flown by Leodama Apollo, fitted with a missile, sent to fly in stealthily and disable the Resurrection ship so the rest of the fleet could come in and destroy it. So we do know that it has at least one hard point for a missile. But unfortunately, while it hit its target, it was also hit and Adama ejected. And that was the end of the Black Bird. And also with Pegasus, that was kind of the end of Galactica's need for new fighters to kind of build them from ad hoc parts, because Pegasus had not only a lot of Mark 7s on board itself, but also had manufacturing facilities. So the need for making more kind of ships like this, kind of think of it as an Ugly from Star Wars, if you know what that is. You know, but more ships from parts was no longer necessary. But yeah, it played a part in a few cool episodes. And yeah, it's issue 14. Now that we've kind of gotten the main ships, Galactica, Pegasus, the base stars, the Raiders, Mark II, Mark 7 Vipers out of the way, we're getting into some pretty neat secondary ships. This is issue 14. Issue 15 is the Mark III Viper, which makes me very happy. Issue 16, which they announced, which will be out in a couple of months, is Scar, the Cylon Raider Scar. I'm curious, guys. You could look at pictures for me. How is Scar different, issue 16, from the standard Raider issue 2? Just curious if it's something I should pick up or just didn't really matter. Anywho, this just came in today, and this is what's neat about Eaglemoss. They'll give you an ETA. This was ETA of February. But actually, it came in, they always come in a little early. Came in on January 31st. My last model, Colonial 1, issue 13, came in on Christmas Eve, so December 24th. So it seems like they're shipping these just over a month apart now, 5 to 6 weeks. That's pretty neat. With the Star Trek collection drawing down, I would be okay if they started doing a Galactica nearly every month. They still have plenty of ships they could do. The Resurrection ship, as I mentioned, Heavy Raider. They could do, of course, the Battlestar Valkyrie, which is what I want. They could do the Berserk class escort ship we saw in a few background shots. And of course, there are tons of ships from the fleet they could do, like the Titanium Refinery and Cloud9 and so on and so forth. So, plenty of material. These models are pretty large scale, and this might be one of the largest. You can see the cockpit, which is very Viper Mark II style. Here again is the real Blackbird model. And this is how small the cockpit is, 1/72nd scale. So that tells you right here, this is at least 148, maybe even 132. But keep in mind, these are all made from CG models, computer-generated image type models, so I couldn't really find even dimensions, but it's going to be similar to a Viper, maybe a little bit bigger just because of having the FTL drive. But it scales pretty close with our Viper Mark II we've already got in the collection. You can definitely see the Blackbird's real-world influences with the edges, how it comes to points, how the engines kind of stick out. They're a different shape. They didn't just do a direct copy, and of course the placement of the cockpit is pure Viper. But neat. And of course later in the Season 3 we see the Stealth Star, which is more of an actual official production stealth aircraft in the Battlestar Galactica universe. Yeah, I just wanted to slap a video together pretty quick during the day. I'm waiting on Jay to bring lunch, so figured I'd do this while I'm hungry. Haven't had a lot of time with the model, but in addition to the scale, it's pretty massive and weighty, and of course the canopy is plastic, the top part is metal, the engines are plastic, the bottom is plastic, polymer, the top again is metal, and it feels like in addition there's kind of a weight inside, probably for support so it's not too thick and would get crushed. But yeah, it feels pretty substantial, and like most of the Battlestar Galacticas, it just has kind of a cradle type stand. They sit on their stands pretty well. What I like is you can just easily pick them up and set them back down. They're more of a pedestal, whereas like the Star Trek ships are more, they clip on to the stand. These, they just sit on them, but that's one of the benefits of going to a larger scale. And of course, like all of them, it comes in a pretty decent box and comes with a magazine. But yeah, not exactly one I was thinking they should make originally. It wasn't in my mind, but I'm glad they did. And I'm really excited for issue 15. That'll really complete the Viper fleet with Mark III. And yeah, if you could, let me know about Scar, please. I'm not sure how it's different from what we got at issue 2, and it seems a little bizarre with still so many ships left undone to be repeating ourselves. I'm probably missing something, so let me know, please. And I'm sure I will show this in other videos as time goes by. I've been doing the fleet setup, so after 3 or 4 more ships come, I'm sure it'll appear in more of a fleet video, and I'll give you more info. My dusty Blackbird. So what do you think of Eaglemoss's Blackbird? I think it's pretty cool. And definitely a good reminder of a good television show. If you could, like, share, and subscribe as always. As always, I did my best to get something on camera for you folks. If not, I apologize, but I do my best, as you know. This is Misha, and I'll catch you very soon next time.